They fired on human medics. The retaliation was instant. The white medical shuttle. Mercy One descended through the smoky atmosphere of Korath Prime, its red cross emblems gleaming against the dark sky. Dr. Marcus Vale gripped his medical kit, tighter as the craft shook from distant explosions. The Zephyrian Civil War had created a humanitarian crisis, and human medical teams were responding as they always did, with compassion and neutrality. Landing zone confirmed safe, announced Pilot Officer Lisa Chang from the cockpit. Both Zephyrian factions have guaranteed safe passage under the medical accords. Beside Marcus sat Nurse Captain Jennifer Brooke, her medical scanner already active as she reviewed casualty reports. Behind them, Dr. Timothy Nash and 3 other human medics prepared their emergency equipment. They were part of humanity's most sacred tradition, healers who ventured into war zones to save lives, protected by galactic law and universal respect for medical neutrality. The refugee camp sprawled across the valley like a wound on the planet's surface. Thousands of blue-skinned Zephyrians huddled in makeshift shelters, their injured children crying in languages the human translators quickly converted. Smoke rose from cooking fires and smoldering debris, while the distant rumble of artillery reminded everyone that the war continued just beyond the hills. Dr. Vale stepped off the shuttle, his medical uniform clearly marked with the red cross that had protected human healers for over 2 centuries. "Remember, we treat everyone equally," he told his team. "Faction loyalties don't matter in a medical tent." The human medics moved with practiced efficiency, establishing a field hospital within hours. Portable surgical units unfolded like mechanical flowers, while medical scanners hummed to life. Jennifer Brooke coordinated triage, her experienced eyes quickly identifying the most critical cases among hundreds of wounded civilians. Young Zephyrian children with radiation burns were the first patients. Dr. Nash worked on a family caught in crossfire, their bodies torn by shrapnel but their spirits unbroken. The humans moved between patients with gentle precision, their hands bringing relief to alien bodies that their medical training had taught them to heal. For 6 hours, the red crosses on their uniforms meant safety, compassion, and hope. Then the Crimson Talon faction arrived. The first plasma bolt struck the medical tent without warning. Dr. Brooke threw herself over a wounded child as the structure exploded in flames around them. The red cross emblems that should have protected them had instead made them perfect targets. "They're firing on medics!" someone screamed. The Crimson Talon soldiers moved through the medical facility with calculated brutality. Their black armor reflected the flames as they shot doctors trying to shield patients. They executed wounded civilians on stretchers. They burned medical supplies and destroyed equipment with systematic hatred. Dr. Vale crawled through smoke and debris, dragging injured patients toward an evacuation point that no longer existed. Around him, colleagues who had dedicated their lives to healing were dying alongside those they had tried to save. The sacred medical accords had been shattered by plasma fire and alien cruelty. Jennifer Brooke's voice crackled over his comm unit, weak but determined. Marcus got 3 children to the shuttle. "Tell Earth, they fired on medics." The transmission cut to static. Dr. Vale looked at the dying child in his arms and made a promise that would echo across the galaxy. "This will not go unanswered." 3 hours later, every human in the galaxy received the same message simultaneously. Admiral Catherine Cross stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Retribution, her gray eyes reflecting the cold fury that had replaced humanity's famous compassion. Around her, 1,000 human warships materialized from hyperspace in perfect formation. These were not the white medical vessels with red crosses. These were ships built for war, crewed by humans who understood that sometimes peace required overwhelming force. The message had been simple. Human medical personnel attacked. Medical accords violated. Initiate Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was humanity's darkest secret. While the galaxy knew humans as healers and peacekeepers, they had forgotten that the same species capable of unlimited compassion was equally capable of absolute destruction. For 2 centuries, humans had chosen mercy over might. That choice had just been revoked. "This is Admiral Cross of the Terran Defense Fleet," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You attacked our medics. You murdered our healers. You declared war on mercy itself. The Crimson Talon fleet tried to respond with diplomatic protests and legal justifications. Cross cut them off with prejudice. There will be no negotiation, no quarter, no mercy. You taught us that the Red Cross means nothing. To you. Today you learn what happens when humans stop healing and start killing. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Crimson Talon faction, which had conquered 6 star systems through terror and brutality, was utterly annihilated. Not a single ship escaped. Not one soldier survived. Their home base, built into an asteroid fortress, was cracked open like an egg and scattered to space dust. But Earth's response did not end there. Human fleets appeared simultaneously across 17 different star systems. Every Crimson Talon outpost, every military installation, every ship bearing their insignia was systematically destroyed. The faction that had celebrated killing doctors discovered that human wrath was as absolute as human mercy had been. Admiral Cross watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. The species that had mocked human compassion was learning why humanity had chosen to be healers rather than conquerors. It was not from weakness, but from the understanding that their capacity for destruction was so complete, they had deliberately chosen a different path. Within 6 hours, the Crimson Talon faction ceased to exist. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated the price of attacking those who heal. Every species with military forces immediately issued statements reaffirming their commitment to the medical accords. The message was clear. Human medics were now protected not just by law, but by the certain knowledge of what happened to those who harmed them. Dr. Marcus Vale sat in the medical bay of the rescue ship that had pulled him from Korath Prime's surface. His hands were bandaged, his uniform scorched, but his eyes burned with quiet determination. Through the viewport, he could see the expanding debris field that had once been the Crimson Talon fleet. Nurse Captain Jennifer Brooke lay in the bed. Beside him, her injuries severe but stable. She had saved those 3 children just as she had promised. Her sacrifice and the sacrifice of the 12 human medics who had died in the attack had not been in vain. "Will we go back?" she asked weakly. Marcus looked at the red cross on his torn uniform, then at the wreckage floating in the void beyond. "Yes," he said quietly, "we always go back. But now everyone knows the price of attacking those who choose to heal." The medical shuttle Mercy 2 was already being prepared for deployment. More human medics were volunteering for the mission to Korath Prime, their red crosses gleaming with renewed meaning. The galaxy had learned its lesson, but humanity's commitment to healing remained unshakable. The Red Cross meant something again. It meant mercy, compassion, and healing. But everyone in the galaxy now understood that it also meant protection, backed by the most devastating military force the cosmos had ever witnessed. Human kindness was a choice, not a weakness, and those who mistook one for the other paid the ultimate price. The war on Korath Prime ended 3 days later. Both remaining factions immediately requested human medical assistance, and this time, they provided absolute guarantees of safety. The Red Crosses returned to the refugee camps, bringing healing to a world that had learned to respect the sacred nature of those who chose to save lives rather than take them. In the depths of space, Admiral Cross's fleet maintained silent vigil, a reminder that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons, but their willingness to use them only when their mercy was betrayed. The galaxy learns fear. The news of the Crimson Talon's complete annihilation spread across the galaxy faster than hyperspace communications could carry it. Within 12 hours, every major news network, military command, and diplomatic channel was broadcasting the same impossible story. Humanity had wiped out an entire military faction in less than a day. On the Galactic Council station orbiting Nexus Prime, Ambassador Vexitar of the Hegemony Commonwealth stared at the tactical displays. With his 4 compound eyes wide in disbelief, the holographic reconstruction showed the battle in devastating detail. 1,000 human warships materializing from nowhere, 17 minutes of systematic destruction, and then empty space where the Crimson Talon fleet had once been. "This cannot be accurate," he clicked in his native language to his aide. "The humans are healers, not warriors. They have never shown military capability of this magnitude. His aide, a younger hegemony officer named Korthax, manipulated the holographic controls with trembling appendages. Sir, we have confirmed reports from 7 different intelligence sources. The human fleet that appeared, it was not makeshift or hastily assembled. These were purpose-built warships with technology we have never seen before. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place in every military headquarters and diplomatic mission. The species that had grown comfortable with humanity's pacifist reputation were frantically reassessing their understanding of Earth's true capabilities. On Korath Prime, the surviving Zephyrian factions had called an immediate ceasefire. General Thoxmar of the Northern Alliance stood in his command bunker, watching orbital surveillance footage of the human medical teams returning to the refugee camps. The same red crosses that had been targets hours before were now being treated with reverence bordering on worship. Sir, his communications officer reported, the Crimson Talon survivors are requesting. They want to surrender to the humans. Thoxmar's blue-tinted face paled. There are survivors? Negative, sir. I meant the remaining Crimson Talon. Sympathizers in our territory. They're abandoning their positions and requesting asylum from human forces. The general understood. Anyone who had ever supported the faction that attacked human medics was now terrified of sharing their fate. The humans had demonstrated that their retaliation was not just swift but absolutely thorough. Dr. Marcus Vale stood in the rebuilt medical facility on Korath Prime's surface, watching his team treat the same patients they had been helping before the attack. The new medical tent was identical to the one that had been destroyed, down to the portable surgical units and diagnostic equipment. But everything had changed. Zephyrian soldiers from both factions now provided security around the perimeter, their weapons pointed outward. They had requested permission to guard the human medics, not from Earth's military, but from their own initiative. The Red Cross had become the most protected symbol in the galaxy overnight. Dr. Vale called Nurse Captain Jennifer Brooke from her hospital bed. She was recovering well from her injuries, but insisted on coordinating patient care from her medical scanner. We're receiving requests from 37 different star systems. They want human medical assistance and they're offering unprecedented security guarantees. Marcus nodded grimly. They're afraid. The galaxy has realized that attacking our medics means facing our military. Through the tent's transparent walls, he could see the orbital platforms that had appeared in Korath Prime's sky. Massive human defense stations, their weapon systems clearly visible from the surface. Admiral Catherine Cross had left them as a permanent reminder of what happened to those who violated the medical accords. In the depths of space aboard the dreadnought Retribution, Admiral Cross reviewed reports from her fleet commanders. The systematic destruction of Crimson Talon forces had been completed across 17 star systems. Every military installation, every ship, every weapons cache had been eliminated with surgical precision. Admiral, reported Commander Jackson Pierce, her tactical officer. We're receiving communication requests from every major galactic power. They want to apologize for the actions of the Crimson Talon faction. Cross's gray eyes remained cold. Tell them their apologies are noted, but make it clear that this is the new standard. Any attack on human medical personnel will result in immediate and total retaliation. The commander hesitated. Ma'am, some of them are asking about our military capabilities. They want to know how we were able to deploy such a large fleet so quickly. Let them wonder, Cross replied. Fear is a more effective deterrent than diplomacy ever was. The truth was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. While the galaxy saw them as peaceful healers, Earth's military had been building a defense network that spanned hundreds of star systems. The ships that had appeared to destroy the Crimson Talon had been stationed in hidden bases, crewed by volunteers who understood that sometimes protecting peace required the threat of overwhelming force. On the planet Zarian, home to the Galactic Medical Council, Chancellor Brixtos called an emergency session. The ancient amphitheater filled with representatives from every major species, their conversations creating a cacophony of different languages and concerns. The humans have demonstrated military capability that exceeds our most conservative estimates, Brixtos announced, his tentacles writhing with anxiety. We must reassess our understanding of their true nature. A representative from the Void Runners, a species known for their aggressive expansion, stood to speak. Perhaps the humans have been deceiving us. Maybe their peaceful nature was a facade, hiding their true military ambitions. The suggestion created an uproar among the assembled delegates. But Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's representative to the Medical Council, rose from her seat with quiet dignity. Her Red Cross insignia gleamed on her uniform as she addressed the assembly. "We have never hidden our military capabilities," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "We simply chose not to use them. For over 2 centuries, humanity has dedicated itself to healing rather than conquest. That choice was made not from weakness but from strength." She paused, letting her words settle. The Crimson Talon faction learned the difference between choosing peace and being incapable of war. We hope that lesson will not need to be repeated. The chamber fell silent. Every species present understood the implications. Humanity had been restraining itself, deliberately choosing the path of healers while possessing the power to become conquerors. The attack on human medics had forced them to reveal capabilities they had preferred to keep hidden. Back on Korath, Prime Dr. Timothy Nash emerged from the surgical tent after completing a complex operation on a Zephyrian child. The patient would live, thanks to surgical techniques that human medicine had perfected over centuries of treating different species. As he removed his surgical mask, Nash noticed something that would have been impossible a week ago. Zephyrian parents were bringing their children to the human medical facility, not just for treatment, but for protection. The Red Cross had become a symbol of absolute safety in a galaxy where such guarantees were rare. "Dr. Nash," called Communications Officer David Park from the command post. "We're receiving priority messages from the Terran Medical Corps. They want to know if we need additional security for our operations." Nash looked around at the fortified perimeter, the orbital defense platforms, and the Zephyrian soldiers standing guard. "Tell them we're adequately protected. But more importantly, tell them that our mission continues. We're still here to heal, not to harm." The distinction was crucial. Despite the devastating retaliation against the Crimson Talon, human medical personnel remained committed to their healing mission. The galaxy was learning that humanity's military response had been about protecting their medics, not about conquest or domination. In star systems across the galaxy, alien military commanders were having similar realizations. The humans had not occupied Crimson Talon territory after destroying their forces. They had not claimed their resources or enslaved their populations. They had simply eliminated the threat and returned to their medical missions. Admiral Cross stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the stars through the view screen. Her fleet remained on high alert, ready to respond to any threat against human medical personnel. But she hoped that such responses would never again be necessary. "The galaxy is afraid of us now," Commander Pierce observed. "Good," Cross replied. "Fear will protect our medics better than any law ever could. But our goal isn't to rule through fear, it's to heal through compassion, backed by the knowledge that compassion is a choice we make, not a weakness others can exploit." The message was spreading throughout the galaxy. Humanity remained committed to healing and helping others, but attacks on their medics would result in swift and absolute retaliation. The Red Cross had become the most respected and feared symbol in known space, representing both unlimited mercy and unlimited wrath. As the news networks continued their coverage of humanity's military capabilities, one thing became clear to every species in the galaxy. The humans had not changed their nature. They had simply revealed what that nature truly was, a species capable of both infinite compassion and devastating warfare. The Silent Protectors. 6 months after the Crimson Talon annihilation, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new normal. Human medical ships operated in conflict zones across dozens of star systems, their red crosses now accompanied by discreet but visible human military escorts. The message was clear. Healers would be protected at all costs. Dr. Marcus Vale stood in the observation deck of the hospital ship Sanctuary, watching the twin suns of the Altair system paint the hull in golden light. Below them, the planet Vection writhed in the grip of a plague that threatened to wipe out its entire population. The Vection Council had requested human medical assistance 3 weeks ago, offering guarantees of safety that bordered on the ridiculous in their thoroughness. They've cleared a 50-kilometer radius around every landing zone, reported Communications Officer Lisa Chang, reading from her tactical display. No military vehicles, no weapons, no personnel except medical staff. They've even grounded their entire Air Force to avoid any possibility of accidents. Nurse Captain Jennifer Brooke, now fully recovered from her injuries on Korath Prime, managed a grim smile. 6 months ago, they would have considered such precautions insulting to their sovereignty. Now they're volunteering them. The change in galactic attitude toward human medical personnel had been dramatic and universal. Every species that had once taken human neutrality for granted now treated their medics like precious artifacts. The Red Cross had become a symbol that commanded instant respect and absolute protection. Dr. Timothy Nash joined them at the observation deck, his medical scanner showing the plague statistics from Vection's surface. Mortality rate is approaching 60% in the major population centers. Without our intervention, they're looking at complete civilizational collapse within 2 months. Marcus nodded grimly. The Vection plague was exactly the kind of crisis that human medical teams existed to address. Their adaptive immune systems and advanced medical technology made them uniquely qualified to develop treatments for alien diseases, but the political implications of their presence had become far more complex. On Vection's surface, Chancellor Morden of the Vection Council paced nervously in his sealed command chamber. Through the reinforced windows he could see the white medical shuttles descending from orbit, their red crosses gleaming like beacons of hope. But he also knew that somewhere in the void above, human warships waited with weapons that could reduce his planet to cosmic dust. The human medical team has requested access to our biological research facilities, reported his aide, a young Vection named Kextar, whose purple skin showed the early stages of plague infection. They believe they can synthesize a cure using our genetic databases. Morden's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. Grant them complete access. No restrictions, no observers, no questions asked. If they need resources, provide them. If they need assistance, volunteer it. Do nothing that could be interpreted as obstruction. The fear in his voice was palpable. Like every leader in the galaxy, Morden had studied the tactical reports from the Crimson Talon annihilation. 17 minutes to destroy an entire military faction. No survivors, no mercy, no negotiation. The humans had demonstrated that their retaliation was as absolute as their compassion. In the Vection capital's converted hospital complex, Dr. Vale's team worked with the methodical precision that had made human medicine legendary. Portable laboratories analyzed alien tissue samples, while advanced medical scanners mapped the plague's progression through different Vection physiologies. The work was complex and dangerous, but these were the challenges that human medics trained for. Dr. Nash emerged from the isolation ward, where he had been treating the most critical patients. His environmental suit was sealed against the plague organisms, but his eyes showed the strain of working with unfamiliar alien biology. The pathogen is unlike anything in our databases, he reported. It's not naturally occurring. This plague was engineered. The implications sent a chill through the medical team. Biological warfare was prohibited under dozens of galactic treaties, but proving deliberate infection was often impossible. If someone had intentionally released this plague on Vection, they had committed genocide on an unimaginable scale. Jennifer Brooke was coordinating with the orbital medical laboratories when her scanner detected something troubling. Marcus, we're picking up energy signatures consistent with weapons platforms. Someone's been monitoring our medical operations. Dr. Vale felt his blood run cold. After Korath Prime, any surveillance of human medical personnel was treated as a potential threat. The memories of colleagues dying in burning medical tents were still too fresh, too real. Communications. Contact Admiral Cross immediately, he ordered. Inform her that our medical operations may be under observation by unknown hostiles. The response came faster than he had expected. Within 30 minutes, sensor arrays throughout the Altair system detected the arrival of human military vessels. Unlike the massive fleet that had destroyed the Crimson Talon, this was a smaller force focused on investigation rather than annihilation. Admiral Catherine Cross materialized on the medical ship's communication screen, her gray eyes sharp with concern. "Dr. Vale, we've confirmed multiple surveillance platforms monitoring your operations. The energy signatures suggest Hegemony Commonwealth technology." The Hegemony Commonwealth was one of the galaxy's major powers, known for their aggressive expansion and strategic manipulation of smaller species. If they were behind the Vexian plague, the implications were staggering. "Admiral, our medical analysis suggests this plague was artificially created," Marcus reported. "If the Hegemony released it deliberately, then requested our medical assistance to study our response capabilities," Cross's expression hardened. "They're using your humanitarian mission as intelligence gathering. Every technique you develop to fight this plague, every medical procedure you perform, they're recording for analysis." The realization hit the medical team like a physical blow. The Vexian plague might not be a natural disaster requiring humanitarian aid. It could be a deliberate test of human medical capabilities designed to probe the limits of their healing abilities and response protocols. Dr. Nash clenched his fists. "So we stop? Let an entire species die while we debate their motives?" "No," Cross said firmly. "We continue the medical mission. But we also send a message that using humanitarian crises to spy on human operations carries consequences." The Hegemony surveillance platforms had been carefully hidden in the asteroid fields surrounding Vexian. Their advanced stealth technology made them nearly invisible to most sensors, but human military scanners were more sophisticated than most species realized. Each platform was recording every aspect of the human medical response, from treatment protocols to operational logistics. Commander Jackson Pierce, Admiral Cross's tactical officer, studied the surveillance network with professional interest. 12 platforms total, positioned for optimal coverage of all human medical operations. This isn't casual observation. It's systematic intelligence gathering. Cross nodded grimly. "Eliminate them. All of them. Make sure the Hegemony understands that spying on our medical personnel is considered a hostile act." The destruction of the surveillance platforms was swift and precise. Human fighters emerged from stealth positions, their weapon systems targeting each platform with surgical accuracy. Within minutes, the entire spy network had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. But Cross wasn't finished. The Hegemony had crossed a line by turning a humanitarian crisis into an intelligence operation. If they had indeed created the plague deliberately, they were responsible for the deaths of millions of Vexian civilians. On the Hegemony capital world of Dominion Prime, General Vorthak received the news of his surveillance network's destruction with growing alarm. His compound, eyes studied the tactical reports while his aide waited nervously for orders. The humans detected our platforms. He clicked in the harsh consonants of his native language. "Their sensors are more advanced than our intelligence estimated." "Sir," his aide ventured carefully, "should we withdraw our other operations?" Vorthak's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The Hegemony had been conducting similar surveillance of human activities across 17 star systems. If the humans had detected their Vexian network, they might have found the others as well. His fears were confirmed within hours. Across the galaxy, Hegemony spy networks monitoring human medical operations were being systematically destroyed. Human military forces appeared without warning, eliminated the surveillance platforms, and vanished back into hyperspace. The message was unmistakable. Human medical personnel would not be treated as intelligence targets. On Vexian, Dr. Vale continued his work developing treatments for the plague, but now with the knowledge that their mission had been compromised from the beginning. The Vexian people were still dying, still needed medical assistance, but the political implications had become far more complex. "We've isolated the plague pathogen," Dr. Nash reported from the laboratory. "The genetic markers confirm it was artificially created. Hegemony biotechnology, but modified to be more virulent than their Standard biological weapons.